thoughts. And thank you for braving this technology. I have learned a lot in the last year when it comes to being tech savvy. So thank you for making the effort to do the same. Tonight, the goal is to kind of introduce this mindfulness concept to everyone. Many of us have heard that term, probably heard it almost as a buzzword and without making necessarily the connections to the goal that comes with it. And so tonight, hopefully, we will give a little bit more meaning to the word mindfulness and then give ourselves that opportunity to see where we can infuse it into our own lives and into our days. And then if you find interest or enjoyment in this, as Shauna said, I'd love for you to join us every Monday evening in February, because at those gatherings we'll dive right into the opportunity to practice this a little bit, because like anything else, it takes practice. And it's more fun to practice with people together and have that community atmosphere. So when I get excited, or if I get a little bit nervous, my voice sometimes picks up pace a little bit. If that you notice that happening, please feel free to chime into the chat, and Shauna can give me the take a breath, be mindful yourself, and slow your roll a little bit. I tell my students the very same thing, so no offense will be taken if you say that my enthusiasm is picking up pace. I did put together a Google slideshow for us today. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can see that, and it's going to kind of share some information, share a couple of little activities. Also, I have to say I'm pretty pleased with some of the pictures that I have found from my background. I feel like they tie quite nicely into our mindfulness mentality for the evening. So I will be able to see some of you, but not all of you, as I share my screen. So I just want to put that out there, that I am going to be listening in for Shauna to check in with me, but we'll be kind of sharing the screen for a little bit here. All right. And I may have to shift and shuffle my Zoom amenities a little bit to make sure I can feel my words. So tonight is going to be an introduction to mindfulness and breathwork. I am Jessica Mccrum, and I am a middle school science electives teacher, but I also am Otter Dance Yoga, where I get the opportunity to share in a wide variety of ways and places. So I'm really pleased for the opportunity tonight to be a part of Happy Camp. I think it's a fantastic concept. So my opening screen here is a lotus, and the lotus grows in the mud. And so there is a saying, no mud, no lotus. And so our challenges are things that kind of are the mud, shall we say, are what allow us to blossom into the lotus and to really appreciate the beauty. And so that's kind of a nice place, I think, to start in our mentality, is that we're going to embrace whatever comes up. And sometimes it's going to feel positive, and sometimes it might feel a little bit challenging. And part of being mindful is working to embrace those things without judging ourselves. So just kind of opening with that thought that whatever comes up, embrace it without judging. All right, make sure my buttons are doing what I want them to. All right, so this imagery is one of my absolute favorite things to share when introducing the idea of mindfulness, because it sums it up in such a simple fashion. When we're being mindful, we're purely doing the activity of the moment. So in this image, the dog is purely in the moment. It's on a walk and it's taking in that present. But we as humans, many times in the moment, are also thinking into that future moment. What do I need to do? Creating those to-do lists, or reflecting back into past moments. So thinking about and thinking of how we feel about things that have happened. And so part of the practice of mindfulness is helping our mind continue to come back to the present, because that is the only true moment that we can own, and that's the only true moment that we can impact. So this is a quote by John Cabot. I always tongue-tie his name, but he's kind of the father of mindfulness. He is someone who stepped away from a more medical field and realized how much he could offer by helping people manage their emotions in this way. So he defines mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. And so that's what we're going to kind of throughout this evening dive into the idea of. So what does that mean? So when I'm driving to work and people are driving very aggressively around me, I'm feeling my emotions rise, well, that's okay. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. But how can I move forward with that emotion and be the one who makes the choice of how I handle it? So we're going to open up this thought by talking about distractions. So we're going to start by doing a short activity. In this activity, there's going to be two little girls, and it'll kind of explain it in the video as well. But there's going to be two little girls, and one is going to be waving, and your goal is to count how many times she waves.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
Come back to see how fast I can shift back and forth a little bit here. All right, so what I'd like you to reflect on for a moment was it difficult to stay focused on the girl in the red while the words were popping up? And if you want to kind of do a little chat flurry where you just kind of, you can say, yep, it was for me, or no. I know for myself that I still, like, my automatic reaction is to kind of peek to the peripheral and see the words, even though I know what's going to happen in the video. So what I want us to think about with that, and thank you, I can't read it, but I'm seeing that the chat is beginning to flash. So thanks for those who are brave enough to share out your reality there. So the video only had some distractions. In life, distractions are everywhere. And so continuing this reflection moment, I want you just to kind of reflect, what are some of the distractions that you notice for yourself that maybe occur for you at work or occur for you at home when you're trying to get things accomplished? So same thing, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and share out and in the chat a little bit, but what are some of these distractions that are in the world around us that we notice when we're trying to get things done? And some of those distractions might be enjoyable things, like, you know, our pets coming up for a snuggle. Others might be less enjoyable things, like our internet crashing when we're trying to get that last little bit of paperwork accomplished. But just kind of tuning in that awareness of some of the things that kind of distract us throughout our day. Let's see if I can peek into the chat here before I move forward.
You know, Jess, one of the things that I saw is Stacy noticed it's the same as trying to ignore your phone notifications and focus on what's right in front of you. And then other people are chiming in, like constant emails, phone text notifications, lots of chat about that.
Absolutely. See, this is where, yes, the technology can be a beautiful thing that can bring us all together on a Monday evening when there's supposed to be a snowstorm, but it can also be that thing that doesn't allow us to turn work off when it's time to turn work off and allow ourselves to be present. So yeah.
There's also some people who really need to know how many waves there were. So you're going to tell us, right, before we move on.
Fair enough. 25. There were 25 waves. Thank you for calling me out, because that's terrible if you think that if you're not sure if you were right or not. Yes, there was 25 waves. And some people might be able to multitask better and be able to say 25 waves and be able to tell some of the words that popped up as well. All right, so these distractions, I have to shift my, just a second here, my Zoom a little bit. So our thoughts can also be distractions. Thoughts about things that have happened in the past or things about what may happen in the future. So in times, those past thoughts can make us upset and angry because we're reflecting back and maybe overthinking a situation or not allowing ourselves to let it go. Future thoughts can make us feel a little bit anxious or worried. For myself, last night, I had a little bit of those future anxious thoughts because today was my first day back in a hybrid teaching situation. And so thinking ahead, am I ready? Do I have these things done? My mind kind of was getting away from me a little bit. And the power of mindfulness is not that that doesn't happen to us any longer, but it's that we notice it, we see it in ourselves, and then we can kind of make a shift. And so just building that awareness so we can kind of pick up on our own body's hints that it's telling us. So mindfulness can help to keep us a little bit more in the present. And then I love this thought that like focus is not something that comes naturally. It requires practice. So it's not something, oh, well, they're just a really focused person and I'm not. It's like anything else. We can learn, we can grow, and then we can improve. And I love the word practice because so many things in life are a practice. They're not a perfection. It's a constant state of learning, growing, making a mistake, and then continuing to learn and grow and keep moving forward from that. Being mindful means that we are fully in the present moment, that we're aware of our thoughts, we're aware of our feelings, and this last word sometimes is the trickiest one, without judgment. It's so easy that internal dialogue can very shift to a negative one if we're seeing ourselves get angry, and then we get upset with ourselves and judge ourselves for being angry as opposed to being peaceful. Or, the internal dialogue can say that, ugh, you're so stupid, or ugh, you're so lazy. And so we want to let go of that judgment and just be aware of our thoughts and our feelings. And then also just being aware of our surrounding environment. So, being aware of the space that we're creating for ourselves, maybe being aware of how that space is making us feel. And so once again, I love infusing little quotes and thoughts because I have journals full of them in my home to reflect back on. But when you drink, just drink. And when you walk, just walk. And then once again, like that first image that I shared, I love that we can take some of these challenging concepts and really boil them down into some simple, digestible ways to think about it. But yeah, so many times I know for myself that if I'm maybe eating, I'm also making a to-do list, or I'm drinking my tea, but I'm also checking my phone. And if I'm walking my dog, my mind is, wandering. And so continually, once again, noticing as we kind of pull away from that current activity and bring ourselves back in and take in all of the beauty that makes up that moment. So in that drinking of the tea, noticing the warmth of the cup on our hands, noticing the smell of whatever tea we chose to drink, noticing the feel of that warm steam on our skin. So taking in those sensations and allowing that to be its own special moment as opposed to trying to add on to it. So we're going to dive just a little bit into how this can be a personal practice, but it also is being seen more and more on a large scale as a powerful way to handle a lot of life's big things. So there are more than 10,000 published papers available on mindfulness-based therapies, probably even more since I looked that up. So two key organized, structured trainings around this are mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and mindfulness-based stress reduction. And these are actually being infused, into a lot of hospitals and treatment centers as a way to help people to manage anxiety, to manage stress, burnout, trauma, addiction, eating disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder. So it's becoming a supportive therapy, not just for our daily practice, but for handling some of the bigger things in life as well, which I think is a great shift in societies to be able to look towards these alternative therapies that can really help to support us as well. So what are some of the things that we might see shift within ourselves if we decide to dive in and explore this idea of practicing mindfulness? We might be able to see an increased experience of calm and relaxation. We might see higher levels of energy and enthusiasm for living. When you drink that tea mindfully, it becomes its own thing, its own experience, and it does just heighten that energy and enthusiasm for those small moments. An increased self-confidence and self-acceptance. Experiencing less stress, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, or low immune deficiency. And more self-compassion, more compassion for others and for our planet. I also teach mindfulness in one of my elective courses with middle school students. And I shared with them today that I was going to be able to share a little bit of this with some adults this evening. And so they were saying, yeah, but it also allows me to focus better, even when I have to work from home. It also allows me to be kind to my siblings when I really just feel like it's hard, you know. So it was cute that they wanted to add their 2 cents. And so one of the things that I love about this is that it's something that is not just for adults or just for children. It's for us as people to be able to live our lives a little bit more fully and to grab onto all of these little moments, even if the day overall felt a little bit overwhelming. And I love this quote. Like I said, I love to infuse thoughts and quotes. We need only remember when we were children who gazed up at the sky and the drifting clouds. There was nothing to do, nothing to achieve. There was no notion of time nor any guilt for wasting it. Time and guilt are a concept we learn about much later in life. And I feel that many times we live in a society that rewards pushing ourselves to the point of feeling that burnout, and that at times gives a little bit of that guilt for, you know, wasted time when we're just sitting and taking in. And so I love this quote that that reflection of bringing ourselves back to no guilt for embracing time and not feeling that we need to be busy within each moment. So we're just going to touch on a little bit the connection to our mind with mindfulness. So I do have a little hand model that I like to share that because it helps me remember these, which means that it helps me to help my students remember these. So if you want to hold up your palm and then tuck your thumb across your palm and then bring your fingers down over it. If you kind of rotate it now so your kind of thumb is facing towards you, this front flat portion of your hands is your prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is where we're able to problem solve, we're able to make smart decisions, we're able to be focused, calm, and in control. Our amygdala, which is that thumb going across our palm, That is our emotion center. So this is kind of like the alarm system of our mind. So this is where if we sense that something might be unsafe, the alarm goes off and fight, flight, freeze kicks in of how to handle that situation. And then down here in our palm, that's our hippocampus. And this is kind of like the filing cabinet of our mind. This is where we store memories. This is where we store our experiences so that we can open that filing cabinet up and go, yep, been here, done that. We know how to handle it, and we can access that. So when we are in a calm, clear, mindful state, our mind is right here. We're able to make those decisions. We're able to handle what's coming at us. However, if we flip our lid, that alarm goes off. Now we're here. We're in our fight, flight, freeze, and we've lost that pause, that chance to make a decision that is thought through. And so one of the cool things with mindfulness is when we flip our lid, which we're all going to do, is that mindfulness is a way to help bring ourselves back so that we're not letting those big emotions take over. So we can feel them, we can acknowledge them, but then we can choose how to manage them, which I think is really cool. And I do love having that model for even just for myself. And I use it with my students every once in a while. We'll use that kind of as a sign language communication, where if the kids need a space, they can kind of be like, okay, I know I'm flipping my lid a little bit. And so it helps to build that, once again, that awareness, noticing things within ourselves, and noticing, oh, I can feel this beginning to happen in my body. How am I going to choose to handle it? So I think, once again, this is a great image to help us just kind of think about what we're doing when we're being mindful. So between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So in a normal situation, we're going through life, and then some stimulus gets thrown at us. Maybe it's that crazy driver in the morning on the way to work. Maybe it's the fact that we spilled coffee or tea on ourselves. Maybe it's just the fact that somebody we came across was feeling frustrated. We didn't get enough sleep, whatever it might be. That stimulus comes and boom, we react to it. We don't think, we just react. As we continue to practice mindfulness, that same thing happens, but we create a pause. We create a space to acknowledge that initial feeling, and then we choose how we respond. We give ourselves that moment to go, okay, I'm not just going to react. I can feel the feeling, but I'm going to choose what I do with it. I'm going to choose how I respond to this situation. And it's not always easy, and we won't be able to do it every time. But the more that we practice, the more that pause becomes our gut reaction, as opposed to I just didn't use the word reaction, our gut response as opposed to a reaction. All right, so here are a couple of my reminders. It will be challenging in the beginning, like learning anything new, because I think that the concept is so simplistic that people think that it's going to be simplistic to implement. And like anything, it's going to be challenging because our old habits are going to want to slide back in. So work on learning one technique at a time, let them build on each other, and then find which one works for you. So today at the end of our program, we're going to be exploring several different small mindfulness practices. And I want you just to kind of think for yourself, which one of these kind of resonates with you? Which one feels good in your mind and your body? And maybe what was okay, but really just didn't have that same level of resonance. And that it's okay. You can try something and not enjoy it. I teach yoga, and I say that as well. If you don't like the first class, try another class, try another time, try another instructor. So don't let one experience go, oh, this isn't really for me. Be willing to try a few different techniques as well. And then notice that when you stay focused a little bit longer, so celebrate those small little shifts, those small little growth moments. Notice when you're more aware of your thoughts. When, like last night, I was in bed and my mind began to wander because of my big day ahead. Just noticing that and being aware that it happened is a beautiful step. Notice the emotions without judgment. I'm going to keep adding that in. And notice the choices that you have. When you give yourself that pause, you begin to see that there is more than one choice available, and that you have the power to pick. And whenever we feel like we have power, it feels good. It feels good to feel like we have that choice. All right, so now we're going to kind of go into a little bit of reflection and some many mindful practices. So a mindful day, little things matter. So all of these little moments are an opportunity to step out of autopilot. So many of us, especially early in the morning, kick into that autopilot and just kind of move through our routines. So those routines can become rituals when we do them mindfully. And so it changes the experience that we have with the daily tasks when we add that little shift in mindset. So when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, just noticing the sensations, taking in those 5 senses. What are you tasting? What are you smelling? What are you seeing? What are you hearing in this moment? As you're getting dressed, in conversations. I work a lot with this with my middle school students and with myself. It's so easy when you get caught up and excited in a conversation to be thinking about all the things that you want to share with this person, and not realizing that you've now not taken a mindful intake of those things that they were excited to share with you. And so it's a beautiful opportunity to practice mindfulness, because you get a deeper connection with that conversation with that person that you're having. Eating and drinking. This is another one that I notice a very large difference for myself when I really focus on mindfully enjoying my tea or mindfully enjoying my meals. One, I don't feel the need to eat as much because I'm savoring and enjoying each texture, each taste, as opposed to it being another mission to accomplish to get on to the next thing. And driving. So, the last year we probably had a little bit less driving, but we're shifting back to where maybe we're starting that commute to work in the morning or on the way home in the evening, and just trying to be a little bit more mindful of the sensation of your hands on the wheel. Maybe being mindful of taking in, if you're like me and you are driving and it's still dark out, sometimes you get to see the moon, and just taking in that surrounding atmosphere and allowing that to set the tone for your day. I find it especially powerful in the morning to set my tone, because the things that come after don't seem nearly as urgent if I've let myself have that moment to start the day calm and in control. And so, like, noticing, shift my screen again here. Once again, what do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? And when you do those kind of that checklist for yourself in the moment, it brings you to the present, because you can't be thinking ahead or thinking back if you're thinking about what you feel right now. What do you see right now in this present moment? So before we shift to the next slide, I would love you just to take a breath and think to yourself, where is 1, maybe 2 spaces in my day that I could step out of autopilot and consciously try to be mindful, even if it's just for 1, 2, or 3 minutes. Maybe it's that drive, maybe it's the first sip of morning coffee or tea, but just kind of seeing where's a space that I could have a little thing matter and be present in that moment a little bit. So I'm going to take a breath and let you guys either jot that down, maybe share it in the chat if you feel curious to do so. Maybe think about a time in your day that feels a little bit hectic. Is it that morning routine that feels a little hectic and rushed? Is it that lunch break that feels like you're trying to get a lot of things accomplished? Is it that drive home? Maybe it's when you're lying in bed and you're trying to turn the mind off so that you can get a good night's rest. And then pick something in that moment that you can do a little bit more mindfully. All right, another way, so the mind tends to wander. We probably all know this to be true of ourselves, that when we sit in a space of silence, be it meditation, be it final relaxation and yoga, be it just a breaking point in our day, the mind tends to want to drift and wander. And so putting some mantra, putting some words to that time can help to keep pulling ourselves back to the moment. And there's different variations on this loving kindness meditation, but it's one that I really enjoy because it shifts from giving ourselves that loving kindness to giving it to others and then pushing it out into the world. And so I think that that's really powerful to be able to gift ourselves, but also to be able to think outside ourselves as well. So what I'd like you to do, if you've been sitting in one space for the whole time so far, you want to shift your sit bones a little bit, kind of find that nice steady space. Maybe roll the shoulders a couple of times, allowing your hands to come to a rest in your lap, allowing your jaw to begin to release and relax, creating a little bit of space between the teeth, allowing your forehead to begin to soften and to smooth. Allowing your eyelids to become heavy. And then just tuning into the natural rise and fall of your belly. As we work as we find our way to this space, trying to be as free from distraction as possible, I'm going to begin to offer out this loving kindness meditation. Feel free to repeat it for yourself if it feels good, or if you just want to listen to the words and take them in, do that as well. May I be safe and protected. May I be peaceful. May I live at ease and with kindness. May you be safe and protected. May you be peaceful. May you live at ease and with kindness. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings live at ease and with kindness. Let's take a few more breaths and just notice for yourself this evening. Maybe you had a day that you need a little extra dose for you, and so you're going to repeat that loving kindness for yourself once more. Maybe today you have a little bit to spare and you want to push that out to someone that you know, or push it out into the world as a whole. It's just making that choice and moving through this breath one more time. Then we're going to stay with this breath. If you're comfortable with the eyes closed, go ahead and keep them closed or gazing downward. In a moment, I'm going to ring my chime, and I want you to try to focus in on the sound of that chime until you can no longer hear it. And then when you can no longer hear it, just slowly begin to open the eyes and come back into our space. All right, thank you. All right, so now we're going to shift. There's a couple more little bite-sized mindful moments that I'd like us to explore before we come into the close of our time together. And I love this because, once again, it's bite-sized. It feels manageable in a very busy world and a very busy time. It's an EGS journal. So at the end of the day, maybe as you're trying to slow the mind and ready yourself for sleep, E, what did you enjoy today? So even if today was not all that you hoped it might be, what can you pull from that that you found enjoyment in? G, what are you grateful for today? And S, what are you satisfied with? So maybe this is something as simple as you remembered to finally call and to pay that bill. Maybe it's something that has been on your to-do list for several weeks shifting forward, and you got to it today. So just pausing and letting your mind end the day on these positive things. So no matter what happened, you're going into your rest thinking about the enjoyment you can pull out, the gratitude that you have, and the satisfaction with even the smallest of things that we got accomplished for the day, or the biggest of things, because those days happen as well. And if you're like me, sometimes when I'm asked these questions on the spot, my mind doesn't always come up with the answers as clear and concise or as eloquently as I would wish. So if you brought a pencil and paper, maybe just jotting these questions down and allowing yourself, when you aren't in the middle of a learning program, to revisit them and allow your mind to be a little bit more in that space. All right, so now we're gonna do a little bit of awakening our breath. And so it's gonna be very similar to how we began our loving kindness. So you're just gonna settle your seat. Maybe you're on the ground, maybe you're on a chair, maybe you're standing tall. So it's finding what works best for you. And this time I'd like you to place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And your eyes can remain softly focusing forward. They can fall closed. You can pick what feels good for you this evening. And then once again, releasing the jaw, relaxing the forehead, allowing the eyes to feel heavy. And we're going to turn that awareness to our breath. And I want you to notice the gentle rise and fall of both the belly and the chest with your inhale and your exhale. And right now, we're not going to do anything to change it. We're just going to notice that natural rhythm. We're going to notice that natural rise and fall. And then from this space, from this awareness of breath, we're going to shift into what's called the box breath. And so we're going to inhale. As we inhale, push the breath down to the base of the belly. Feel the belly rise, the ribs expand, and the chest lift. And then hold that breath for a moment. And then slowly begin the release of the breath. Noticing as the chest begins to drop, the ribs begin to contract, the belly begins to sink towards the spine, and then hold completely clear of air for just a moment. Make sure my terms match. And then come back to our inhale. Slow, steady, and strong. maximizing our lung capacity. And when we reach that max capacity, pausing and holding. And then slow, steady release. And then pausing. We'll allow our hands to come down to our lap or our sides. So the box breath can be continued for a longer breath practice if you choose, but it's giving us that focus on the breath. It's giving us that pause in between the inhale and the exhale, which is really powerful to kind of slow down the body and the mind. All right, so at this point, I'm getting towards the close of our practice for today. I wanted to make sure to leave a little bit of time for any conversation or questions. But if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper with us, the practices moving into the Mondays in February are going to be all about actively practicing mindfulness together. So today was a lot about learning about what it is and what it means and how we can incorporate it into our lives, with a little taste test of a couple of things at the end. So each Monday, we're going to explore some gentle movements along with a different breath technique and a different mindfulness technique. So there's a lot of different ways to explore this mindfulness practice, and so we'll have the opportunity to do 4 of them together over the course of the month of February, which I'm really excited about. So hopefully a couple of you are too, now that we've had a chance to spend some time together. And then thank you all once again for making time to be here on a Monday evening, to have a mindful Monday, to set the tone for your week a little bit. If you have questions that come up right now, I would love to spend some time exploring and answering those to the best of my ability. But otterdanceyoga@gmail.com is my email. So if questions pop to your mind later on, I'm the queen of that. Once I have the chance to process everything I've taken in, then the questions start to come. So please feel free, if those questions pop into your mind at the end of the week, throw them out to me. I would love to have a chance to do that whenever it comes up for you. And Otter Dance Yoga is on Facebook, and so that's another way that we can be in contact if this is something that you would like to spend some more time with. As the world begins to shift into open, I'm going to try and offer some more yoga programming as well. So I would love to have you be a part of the Marshall District Library community and my community as well. And with that, I'm going to drop my screen share just so I can see faces again a little bit. How did I do in my time? Okay, I did pretty good on my time.
You did great, Jessica, and there was no rushing at all. You were in your element and we were flowing with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am really excited to see that people are very interested in meeting again in Mondays in February. You only need to register once, so if you visit our website, yourmdl.org, and I'll throw that in the chat so you can click it if you want here in a second. Just register for any one of the Mondays in February. The link will be the same each week. So once you have the link, you can join us each time in February. And while you're there, sign up for Laughter Yoga. I mean, sign up for the other things too, but remember, I want to see your faces and laugh with you. Jessica, we did have one question that I think several people are having actually, and that is, could you go over or show us the slide for the EG?
Oh, the journal page?
Yes.
Yes. Let me get my screen back to share. Yes. I can do that. Let me go back. Is that large enough, or do you want me to go into present mode?
No, I think that looks good. And if you have your phone nearby, which you all said you were kind of guilty of too, you could take a picture of this slide. I also am recording this evening, and so I'm happy to send the link out to all of you who registered using the email you registered with also. So you can do some of these practices again. Feel free to unmute if you have a question at this point. There is another question in the chat, Jessica. Just wondering if you could share a bit more about how you use the techniques with your students. And I think we're talking about middle school students right now.
Yes. With my middle schoolers, we open up by talking about a lot of the similar things. So we talk about distractions and we allow them to verbalize their distractions. And one of the things that I do love about middle schoolers is that once you kind of open up a conversation with them, you get so much back. And so we share about that, and we talk about how they respond to it right now. So how do they respond to these distractions or these big emotions right now before we even dive into the mindfulness? And we have a little bit of a conversation about how that works for them. So how is that working for you? How do you feel about it? And then from there, we will start to talk about what mindfulness is and what it looks like. And we do small mindful practices in class. So we'll do a couple of different journal activities to help us become more mindful. We actually will do like wellness time where I'll do maybe a relaxation story, because for them, they like the quiet, but they also don't want it to be so quiet because they said it's very easy for their minds to wander. So they know how to own the fact that it's hard to maintain the focus. So if I do a relaxation story, they tend to just fall right into the rhythm of listening to that, and that makes it a little bit easier for them. And then we get to have the opportunity, because one of my elective classes is a lot about this, is we get to dive into doing a lot of labs. So we'll do a mindful tasting lab, a mindful listening lab, mindful movements, and they can kind of pick and choose, like I kind of recommended with everyone here, they pick and choose what's working for me. And then when they find the things that work for them, then we can start to build in like, okay, so what do you do if you need that in the middle of a school day? How can you make that work for you in the middle of a situation? And so we talk about how it's, like training for basketball. You're not playing the game, you're practicing, so that when you're in the game and the adrenaline's up, you can autopilot to a more healthy way to handle things. So that's kind of, I guess, like the long and the short. There's a lot of little bits in between, but yeah, it's amazing how receptive young people are. And it's a good role model of how receptive we can be to learning and growing.
Awesome. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to unmute or put them in the chat. And when Jess has a chance to read all of the thank yous, I'm sure she will appreciate them. So thanks to those of you that have put some thank yous in the chat. Looking forward to seeing you next Monday. Drop by the website and register if you haven't. All right.